I've told this story maybe 100 times. At bars, at reunions, once at my own daughter's wedding when somebody asked me about the bravest person I ever met. And every single time I get to the part about the tattoo and the whole room goes quiet. Same way we went quiet that day. So let me start at the beginning, the real beginning. My name doesn't matter much. Back then everybody just called me Tully. I was 22 years old, skinny as a fence post, and I thought I was the toughest thing God ever put on two legs. That's the kind of stupid you only get to be once in your life. I'd come to Coronado, California to become a Navy SEAL, and I figured the hard part was getting there. I was wrong about that. I was wrong about almost everything that summer. If you've never seen Coronado, picture this. A strip of land out past San Diego where the sun comes up over the bay and goes down into the Pacific. White sand that looks like a postcard until you're crawling across it with a boat on your head. The ocean out there isn't warm and friendly like people imagine California. It's cold. Cold enough to make a grown man cry and call it sweat. And the whole place hums, day and night, with this low rhythm of men being broken down on purpose. That's what Bud S is. They break you down to find out what's underneath. Most guys, there's nothing underneath. They quit. The bell rings and another one's gone home. The first morning they lined us up on the grinder, that's the big concrete yard where the instructors do their work. 200 and something of us, all young, all cocky, all of us looking sideways at each other, sizing up who'd ring the bell first. And then I saw her. I want you to understand I almost didn't see her at all. She was standing at the end of the second row, dead still, eyes forward. Not big, maybe 5'7". Lean the way a rope is lean. Brown hair cut short and practical. She had to be a good 10, 12 years older than the rest of us, and there was something about the way she stood that I couldn't put words to back then. She wasn't trying to look tough. That was the thing. Every other guy on that grinder was puffing his chest out, jaw set, doing the whole movie soldier act. She just stood there like she was waiting for a bus. Calm. Bored almost. The guy next to me, big farm kid named Boone, leaned over and whispered, "They let women in now." "Guess so," I said. "She won't last a week." I remember nodding. I remember agreeing with him. That's the part I'm ashamed of, even after all these years. I looked at that woman and I decided I knew her whole story before she'd said a single word to me. Her name was Wren. Petty Officer Wren. We found out later, though for a long while we just called her the woman, like she wasn't quite real. Like she was a thing that had wandered onto the grinder by mistake. And on her left forearm, just below the elbow, she had a tattoo. It wasn't a big flashy thing. Half the guys in our class had ink skulls, eagles, moms' names, all that. Loud stuff. Her tattoo was small and faded the way ink goes when it's been on the skin a long, long time. Just simple black lines. A little bird in flight, wings tucked back like it was diving. And underneath it a row of tiny numbers. Looked like a date maybe, or coordinates. Hard to tell from where I stood. It looked old. It looked cheap, even, like something you'd get done in a back alley somewhere for $20. Next to all the polished, colorful, expensive tattoos the rest of us were sporting, it looked like nothing. Boone noticed it during the first water session, when we were all stripped down and shivering. He nudged me and pointed his chin at it. "Look at that thing," he said, grinning. "Looks like a fifth grader drew it." A couple of the other guys heard him and laughed. Not loud. Just that low, mean little laugh young men do when they've found somebody to feel better than. "Bet she got it on spring break," somebody said. "Bet she doesn't even know what it means." She heard us. I'm sure of that now, looking back. She had to have heard us. But she didn't turn around. She didn't say a word. She just kept her eyes on the water and waited for the instructor's whistle. And see, that should have told us something right there. Because in that place, everybody reacted. Everybody. You insult a man at Bud S and he comes back at you twice as hard because that's the only currency anybody's got. Pride. It's all you've got left when they've taken your sleep and your food and your warmth. But Wren didn't have any pride to defend, or that's how it looked. We thought she was beaten down already. Quiet because she was scared. Quiet because she knew she didn't belong. We were so wrong. The first week they put us through hell. Not hell week, that comes later, and that's a whole other story, but the regular hell of those first days. Running in the soft sand till your calves seize. Carrying boats over your head with 6 other guys, all of you out of step, the thing slamming down on your skull. Push-ups in the surf zone, where the cold water rushes up under you every few seconds and steals whatever heat you've got left. And the whole time the instructors are right there in your ear. They've got bullhorns. They tell you to quit. They tell you it's okay to quit, that there's hot coffee and donuts waiting for you the second you ring that bell. They make it sound so easy, so warm. That's the trap. They don't break your body, they break your want to. Guys started ringing out almost immediately. First day, we lost maybe a dozen. The bell would clang 3 times, that's the ritual, and you'd see some kid you'd been laughing with at breakfast walking off the beach with his head down, a towel around his shoulders, done forever. Every time the bell rang, I looked for Wren. I'm not proud of that either. Part of me was waiting for her to be the one. We all were. There was almost a betting pool, unspoken, but everybody was watching her, waiting for the woman to fold. She didn't fold. She wasn't the strongest. She couldn't outmuscle Boone on the log lifts. Nobody could. But she never quit a single evolution. When the rest of us were screaming and shaking and looking around for an excuse to stop, she'd just keep moving. Steady. Efficient. Like she was rationing something the rest of us didn't know we were supposed to ration. I started noticing little things about her. The way she'd close her eyes for half a second before a hard set, just one breath and then go. The way she never wasted a movement. When we'd run the obstacle course, the O-course we called it, most of us attacked it like animals, all power and no plan, gassing out by the halfway wall. Wren flowed through it. She wasn't fast in a flashy way. But she never stopped, and she never made a mistake, and she'd be standing at the finish, breathing slow, while the rest of us came staggering in like drunks. One of the instructors, a chief named Petrov, built like a refrigerator, voice like gravel in a blender. He started watching her too. I caught it. He'd be screaming in some kid's face, full volume, and his eyes would drift over to Wren on the rope climb, and he'd get this look. I didn't understand the look back then. It wasn't the look you give somebody you're trying to break. It was the look you give somebody you recognize. But that didn't make sense, so I forgot about it. The mockery didn't stop, by the way. If anything, it got worse, because the longer she lasted, the more it bothered the guys who'd written her off. Boone especially. He decided early she was a fluke, and every day she didn't quit was like a personal insult to him. He kept coming back to the tattoo, that little faded bird. It became the thing, you know. The symbol of everything they wanted her to be: soft, fake, a tourist playing soldier. "Hey, Wren," he said one evening while we were all hosing the sand off our gear. "What's the bird mean? Your boyfriend draw that for you." A couple guys snickered. She kept rinsing her swim fins, didn't look up. "Come on," Boone pushed. "We're all friends here, what's it mean?" And finally, first time I'd really heard her speak more than a one-word answer, she said, "It means something to me." That's it, that's all. Quiet voice, flat, not angry, not scared, just a door closing. Boone laughed. "It means something to me," he mimicked, high and whiny. The guys ate it up. But here's what I remember. When she said it, "It means something to me," I watched her thumb move just for a second across that tattoo, like you'd touch a scar, or a wedding ring after the person's gone, real gentle, almost without knowing she was doing it. And something went cold in my stomach. I didn't know why. I just knew in that 1 second that whatever that bird meant, it wasn't a joke. It was the opposite of a joke. It was the kind of thing you don't talk about, because talking about it would take more out of you than the whole rest of this place combined. I didn't say anything, though. I just kept rinsing my gear and laughed along with the others, because I was 22 and a coward in all the small ways that don't show. About 10 days in, we lost a guy bad. Not the bell, I mean really bad. His name was Kessler. Good kid from Ohio. We were doing pool work, drown-proofing they call it, which is exactly as friendly as it sounds. Hands tied behind your back, feet bound, and you've got to bob and float and travel the length of the pool without panicking. The whole point is to teach your body not to fight the water. Most people's instinct when they can't use their arms is to thrash. Thrashing kills you. The water wins every time you fight it. Kessler panicked, went down and didn't come up right. And for a few seconds, and at the time those few seconds felt like an hour, nobody moved. The instructors were on the far side. The rest of us were treading, exhausted, half out of our minds, and our brains were just too slow and too tired to understand what we were seeing. Wren understood. She was in the water before the instructor's whistle finished. I didn't even see her decide. One moment she was floating at the wall, the next she was cutting through the lane toward Kessler, and she moved through that water like she'd been born in it. No splashing. No panic. She got under him, got him turned, got his face up, and she had him at the wall before two of the instructors even hit the deck. And while she held him there, keeping his head out, talking to him low and steady while he coughed up half the pool, I saw her arm wrapped under his chin. The tattoo. The little diving bird right there against his throat, holding him to the surface. Nobody laughed about the tattoo after that, not for a while. But nobody understood it yet either. That came later. That came the day the commander walked onto our beach. And I'll tell you, I've never seen a grown man go pale and stand straight and forget how to breathe, all at the same time, the way that commander did when he saw that little faded bird on Wren's arm. You want to know the strange thing about that pool day? By the next morning, it was almost like it never happened. That's how that place works. There's no time to feel anything. Kessler got pulled medical, not the bell, but pulled all the same, and we never saw him again. And the rest of us just kept grinding because the sun came up and the instructors came out and the boats needed carrying. Whatever Wren did in that water, it got swallowed up by the next 100 miserable hours like a stone dropped in the bay. But it changed something underneath. You couldn't see it, but you could feel it. The way a room feels different after somebody said something they can't take back. Boone stopped joking about her, mostly. He still didn't like her. I think he liked her less, honestly, because now he couldn't pretend she was nothing, but he stopped running his mouth. The others followed his lead, the way young men do. The tattoo jokes dried up. What replaced them was worse, in a way, suspicion. Because once you stop being able to laugh at somebody, you start wondering about them. And there was a lot to wonder about with Wren. Little things, they added up. Like the way she handled a weapon. We hadn't done much shooting yet, that comes later in the program, but they'd brought rifles out for familiarization one afternoon, just to teach us the basics, how to hold, how to clear, how not to shoot your own foot off. Standard stuff. The instructors walked us through it slow, like we were children, because most of us were. Wren had her rifle cleared and slung before the instructor finished the sentence. Did it without looking. Did it the way you tie your shoes, no thought in it at all, just muscle that's done the thing 10,000 times. And then she caught herself. I watched her catch herself. She sort of slowed down, made herself fumble a little, made herself look like she was learning it for the first time, same as the rest of us. She was hiding it, that's what got me. She wasn't just good. She was good and trying not to show it. Why would anybody do that? I didn't have an answer. I filed it away with the other things. The way she ran, not fast, but with a strange economy, like somebody who'd learned to move long distances over bad ground and live off what little energy she had. The way she slept. We didn't get much sleep, but the little we got, most guys passed out cold. Wren slept light. I'd wake at some godless hour to use the head and she'd already be awake, eyes open, lying perfectly still, staring at the bunk above her. Not restless. Just awake, like part of her never fully went under. And there were the scars. You see a lot of skin at but as everybody's stripped down half the time, wet and freezing. So you notice things. And Ren had scars I didn't have words for. Not training scars. Not the road rash and rope burns the rest of us were collecting by the day. Old scars. A long pale one down the back of one shoulder, thin and straight. A puckered round one high on her side that she never explained and nobody had the nerve to ask about. The kind of marks that come from a life I hadn't lived and couldn't imagine. Boone saw them too. One night he muttered to me, "What happened to her, you think?" "I don't know," I said. "Car wreck, maybe." "Maybe." But we both knew it wasn't a car wreck. We just didn't have anywhere to put the truth, so we made up something smaller. There was an instructor I haven't told you about yet, Senior Chief Ramos. Older than Petrov, quieter, the kind of man who didn't yell because he didn't have to. When Ramos walked the line, the whole class straightened up on its own. He had this stillness about him. Like Ren, now that I think about it. Maybe that's why I noticed what I noticed. About 2 weeks in, we were doing surf passage, taking the boats out through the breakers, which is exactly as brutal as it sounds. The waves come in sets, and if you mistime it, the ocean picks up your boat and your whole crew and throws you all back on the sand like dice. We got dumped. Hard. Everybody scrambling, the boat rolling, somebody screaming. Normal day. When we finally got the boat sorted and dragged it up the beach, I happened to be near the front, near where Ramos was standing with his clipboard. And Ren was up front too, soaked, dripping, hauling on the bow line. And Ramos looked at her, just for a second, and he gave her the smallest nod, tiny. You'd have missed it if you blinked. The kind of nod that isn't an instruction. It's a hello. It's an I see you. It's the thing you do to somebody you already know. Ren didn't nod back. She kept her eyes down, kept hauling the line, but her jaw tightened, just for a second. Now Ramos didn't nod to anybody, not to us. We were sand fleas. We were numbers on his clipboard he was trying to erase. He didn't nod to recruits, so why did he nod to her? I started watching the instructors after that, almost as much as I watched Ren. And once I started looking, I couldn't stop seeing it. They were careful with her. Not soft. Don't get me wrong, they ran her into the ground same as everybody, but there was a quality to it. Petrov, the gravel-voiced one, he'd scream in your face till your ears rang. But when he got up in Ren's space, the screaming had something missing from it. It was for show. He was performing the abuse so the rest of us wouldn't notice he wasn't really delivering it. And his eyes, every time his eyes had that recognition in them. That same look from the first day. These men knew something about Ren that we didn't. And whatever it was, it scared them a little. Or maybe scared isn't the word. It made them respectful in a way they were working hard to hide. Like you'd be careful and quiet around something you'd been told was dangerous, even if it was sitting still. I tried to ask her about it once. Not directly, I didn't have the guts for that. But I sat near her at chow one evening, the two of us shoveling food down in the 4 minutes they gave us, and I said, kind of casual, "You been in a while, huh?" She kept eating. "What makes you say that?" "Just you know what you're doing out there." I nodded toward the beach, more than the rest of us. She chewed, swallowed, and she looked at me, and for the first time I really saw her eyes up close. They were brown, plain brown, but there was something behind them I can only describe as distance. Like looking down a long road at night. You couldn't see the end of it. You weren't sure you wanted to. "Eat your food, Tully," she said, not unkind, almost gentle. "You're gonna need it." And that was the end of that conversation. But she'd used my name. She knew my name. I hadn't told her my name, out of a class of 200. That woman who never seemed to look at anybody, who kept her eyes forward and her mouth shut, she knew exactly who I was. Probably knew all of us. Was clocking everything all the time while we thought she was barely hanging on. I lay awake a long time that night. Or what passed for a long time, in the 20 minutes they let us have. Then came the day with the rope. We were doing the cargo net, this huge net strung up high, part of the O course, and you climb it and go over the top and come down the other side. It's not the worst thing out there, but it's high enough that a fall would hurt you bad. The top of it sways. You've got to commit, swing your leg over, trust your hands. A kid named Dwyer froze at the top, just locked up. It happens, you get up there exhausted, your grip's shot, your arms are jelly, and your body just says no. He was straddling the top bar, white-knuckled, not going forward and not going back, and you could see the panic climbing up his throat. And here's the thing about freezing up high. The longer you freeze, the weaker your grip gets, and the more likely you are to fall. Time is the enemy. The instructors were yelling at him from the ground, which only made it worse. Wren was a few feet below him on the net, and she did something I've never forgotten. She didn't yell. With all that noise from the ground, she didn't add to it. She climbed up next to him, slow and easy, and she got her face close to his, and she said something. I couldn't hear what, but I watched Dwyer's face. I watched the panic drain out of it. Whatever she said, it reached him in a way the screaming couldn't. She put her hand flat on his back, just rested it there, and she stayed with him, and after a few seconds he moved, swung his leg over, started down the other side, made it. When they both came off the net, Dwyer was shaking like a leaf and trying to thank her, and Wren just said, "Keep moving," and walked off toward the next station like it was nothing. But I'd seen her face up there, when she was talking him through it. There was something on her face I hadn't seen before, not the calm distance, not the bored stillness. Something raw, like she'd been up on a ledge with somebody before, somebody who maybe didn't come down. And her sleeve had ridden up. The bird was showing. That little faded diving bird, right there on the back she'd pressed against Dwyer to keep him from falling. I told Boone about all of it that night. The weapon, the nod from Ramos, the scars, the way the instructors handled her, my name in her mouth, I laid it all out. Boone was quiet a long time, which for Boone was a miracle. Then he said, "You're saying she's not a trainee." "I'm saying I don't know what she is." "Then why's she here? If she already knows all this, if the instructors already, why would somebody go through this on purpose if they didn't have to?" And that was the question, wasn't it? That was the real question. Because nobody goes through Bud S for fun. You don't put yourself through the coldest, hardest, most punishing thing the United States military has to offer unless you've got no choice, or you've got something to prove that's bigger than the pain. So which was it for Wren? I didn't find out for another 2 weeks. Not until Hell Week. Not until the night everything went sideways and the ocean tried to take 3 of us, and a woman with a faded bird on her arm walked into the dark to bring us back. But I'm getting ahead of myself again. Let me tell you about Hell Week first, because you can't understand what she did out there unless you understand what Hell Week does to a person. There's no way to really tell you what Hell Week is. I can put the words down, but words are dry and clean, and Hell Week is the opposite of dry and clean. Still, I'll try, because you have to understand it to understand what happened at the end. 5.5 days. That's how long it runs. 5.5 days with maybe 4 hours of sleep total, and not 4 hours in a row, mind you. 4 hours stolen in 10-minute scraps, your face in the sand before a bullhorn or a bucket of seawater rips you back out. 5.5 days of constant motion. Running, swimming, paddling, carrying, crawling. Always wet. Always cold. Always somebody in your ear telling you to quit. They call the first night breakout. That's a polite word for it. What it actually is, they come at you in the dark with explosions and machine gun blanks and fire hoses and bullhorns, all at once, total chaos, and they keep you in the surf and the sand for hours until your sense of time just dissolves. There's no day or night anymore. There's only the next thing they make you do. By the second day, men start hallucinating. I'm not exaggerating. Your brain, starved of sleep, starts filling in things that aren't there. Guys saw boats that weren't there. One kid swore he saw a whole city skyline rising out of the ocean. Another started having a conversation with a tree. The instructors know all this. They've seen it 1,000 times. They just write it down on their clipboards and keep you moving. And the bell, always the bell, sitting there on its little stand, waiting. 3 rings and the pain stops. 3 rings and there's a warm blanket and hot food and a ride back to a normal life where nobody hurts you on purpose. They make sure you can always see the bell. That's the cruelest part. They never hide it from you. We started Hell Week with about 90 guys left. By the 3rd day, we were down to maybe 50. And Ren was still there. By then, something had shifted in how the class saw her. The suspicion was still there. We still didn't know what she was, but underneath it, grudging, ugly, something else had grown. We were starting to lean on her. Not openly. God, no, nobody would have admitted it. But out there in the dark, when your own mind is lying to you and your body's screaming and you don't know which way is up, you find yourself looking for the steady thing. And Ren was the steady thing. She was the fixed point. When the whole world was spinning, she was the one who wasn't. I'll give you an example. The boat crews, they break you into crews of 6 or 7 and you live and die by your crew. You carry the boat together, paddle together, suffer together. My crew got reshuffled around day 2 and I ended up with Ren as boat captain. The instructors put her there. I didn't think much of it at the time. I think about it a lot now. A boat crew with Ren in charge was a different animal. She didn't waste us. Other crews would be screaming and fighting and burning themselves out, every man for himself, and we'd just be working. She read the surf better than anybody. She knew when to push and when to hold. When one of us was about to break, she'd shift the load without making a thing of it, quietly take a little more weight, put the weak guy where the strain was lowest. She kept us alive out there. That's the only way I know to say it. Other crews lost men. We didn't lose anybody. And she never once raised her voice. There was a moment middle of the night, day 3, I think, though by then I couldn't have told you my own name. We were doing a paddle out past the surf zone, way out, farther than felt safe, and the fog rolled in. Thick. The kind of fog where you can't see the man in front of you. And the cold got into us deep, the bad cold, the cold that stops being painful and starts being peaceful, which is the dangerous kind. Hypothermia. It feels nice right before it kills you. I started to drift. Mentally, I mean. I felt warm all of a sudden and sleepy, and I remember thinking it'd be so easy to just stop paddling, just rest, just close my eyes for a second. And Ren's voice came through the fog, quiet, right in my ear. "Tully, stay with me, paddle." I don't know how she knew. She was at the back of the boat. She couldn't have seen my face, but she knew. Somehow she always knew which one of us was slipping, and she'd reel us back in with that low, steady voice, one name at a time. "Paddle, Tully, there you go, stay with me." I paddled. We all made it back to the beach. Every other boat had lost time, lost formation. 2 crews had to be pulled out by the safety boats. Not us. We came in tight and together, and when we dragged the boat up the sand, Ren was the last one out of the water, counting heads, making sure all 6 of us were on dry land before she let herself stop. I looked at her in the floodlights, water streaming off her, and I thought, and I remember this thought exactly, I thought, I would follow this person anywhere. I'd gone from laughing at her tattoo to that, in 3 weeks. The instructors saw it too, the way the class had started orbiting her, and one of them, Petrov, tried to break it. I think it bothered him, not her exactly, the fact that we'd found something to hold on to. Because the whole point is to take everything away from you, and here we were, smuggling in this one good thing, this one steady leader, and it was making us harder to break. So Petrov singled her out. Day 4. The worst day when you've got nothing left and there's still a day and a half to go. He put her in the surf alone, made the rest of us do flutter kicks on the sand where we could watch, and he ran her, just her, in and out of the freezing water, up and down the beach, push-ups in the surf zone, over and over, way past what he was making anybody else do. He got down in her face and screamed every filthy thing he could think of, called her weak, called her a fraud, told her she was taking a man's spot, that she'd get somebody killed downrange, that she should ring the bell and go home to wherever she came from. It went on a long time. long enough that it stopped feeling like training and started feeling like something personal, something cruel. And Ren took it. She didn't argue, didn't break, didn't cry, didn't quit, didn't even change her expression. She just did every single thing he ordered exactly, completely, until her body was shaking so hard she could barely hold the push-up position. And still she held it. But here's the part I'll never forget. At one point, Petrov ran out of things to say. He'd emptied the whole tank of abuse and she just absorbed it. And there was this moment where he stood over her, breathing hard, and she was down in the surf in the front leaning rest, and the two of them just looked at each other. And something passed between them. I was close enough to see it. Petrov's face for just a second dropped the mask, and what was under it wasn't anger. It was something closer to grief or guilt. He looked at her like a man who's been ordered to do something he hates doing. And Ren looked back at him with this expression that said, plain as anything I know, "It's okay. Do your job." Then the mask came back down, and he screamed at her to get up and get moving, and it was over. I didn't understand it, but I understood this much. Whatever was going on, Petrov wasn't really trying to break her. He was trying to make it look like he was trying to break her, and she was letting him. The two of them were running some kind of play that the rest of us weren't supposed to see. For who? That's what I couldn't figure. Who were they performing for? The night it all came apart was the 5th night. The last big push before they'd finally call Hell Week secured. We were doing a night swim, a long one. Open water way out, around a point and back, in pairs, swim buddies they call them, and you never ever leave your swim buddy. That's drilled into you from day one. The water that night was rough. Bigger swell than they'd usually send us out in, but Hell Week doesn't care about the weather, and the safety boats were out there in the dark somewhere, so they sent us. My swim buddy was a kid named Akafer. Good swimmer, better than me. We were maybe 2/3 of the way around the point when the current grabbed us. It came out of nowhere. A rip pulling sideways and out hard. One second we were swimming, the next we were being dragged away from the shore, away from the course, out into the black. I'd been warned about rips. Everybody had. You're supposed to swim across them, not against them. But it's different in the dark, exhausted, 5 days without sleep, when you can't see the shore to know which way across even is. Akafer panicked. He started fighting it straight on, swimming for where he thought the beach was, burning himself out. I grabbed for him and missed. A swell came over us, and when it passed I couldn't find him, couldn't see him, couldn't hear anything but the water. I screamed his name. The wind took it. And then there was a third swimmer. I didn't see her come. The way I never saw her come any of the times. One moment it was just me and the black water and my own fear, and the next there was Ren, right there, and her hand closed on my wrist like iron. "Where's Akafer?" she said, not a shout, just clear, cutting straight through the noise. "I don't know. He went under. I lost him." She didn't waste a second. She put her face in the water, came up, scanned, and she found him. I don't know how, in that dark, in those swells, she found him, and she went. Told me to hold position, to float, to wait, and she went after Akafer into the worst of it. And I floated there, useless, doing the one thing she'd told me to do, and I waited. It felt like forever. It was probably 90 seconds. Then she had him. She came back through the swells towing Akafer, who was limp and choking, and she had me grab his other side, and the two of us got him turned and floating, and she started us all moving not toward the beach because the rip was still pulling, but sideways across it, the way you're supposed to, the way panic never lets you. She kept us calm with that voice. "Easy. Across, not in. We've got him. Easy now." We cleared the rip. The safety boat found us. Somebody had finally seen the lights, heard the whistle. Ren had been blowing in 3 blast bursts the whole time without my even noticing. They got Akafer into the boat. He was alive, coughing up half the Pacific, but alive. And as they pulled him over the side, in the swinging light of the boat's lamp, I saw Ren's arm reach up to pass him over. The sleeve of her wetsuit had torn. The bird was showing. And the safety swimmer in the boat, an instructor, A hard old senior chief I didn't know by name, he saw it too. He saw that little faded diving bird on her forearm in the lamplight. And he went absolutely still. He stared at it, then he stared at her face, and his mouth opened and he said one word, just one. I was close enough in the water with the engine idling to hear it over everything. He said a name. It wasn't Wren. I didn't catch the whole thing, the wind, the water, my own roaring exhaustion. But it wasn't Wren. It was something else. A name that meant something to that old chief, a name that hit him like a fist because his whole face came apart when he said it. And Wren, treading water, holding the side of the boat, soaked and spent, Wren looked up at him and gave the smallest shake of her head. No, not here, not now. The chief closed his mouth. He nodded. He helped her into the boat in silence. But the way he handled her, careful, almost reverent, like she was something precious that had been thought lost, I knew, right then, floating in that black water, that everything I'd wondered about this woman was about to be answered. I just didn't know it would take the commander himself to do it. That's part 4. That's the day the whole base stood still. They secured Hell Week the next morning. If you've never heard those words, you can't know what they do to a man. Hell Week is secured. 5.5 days, and then an instructor, Ramos it was, the quiet one, stood in front of what was left of us, 50-some broken shells of human beings, and he said it plain. Gentlemen and lady, Hell Week is secured. And we just stood there. Most of us didn't even react at first. Our brains were too far gone to understand we'd made it. Then it landed and guys started crying. Big tough kids who'd called themselves the toughest in the country, just standing there in the sand bawling like bobbies, because it was over, because we'd done it, because we were still standing when so many weren't. I cried too. I'm not ashamed of that one. Wren didn't cry. She stood at the end of the line, swaying a little on her feet like the rest of us, and she just closed her eyes for a second. One breath. The same thing I'd watched her do before every hard set, all those weeks. Like she was saying something to somebody only she could hear. They fed us. They let us sleep, real sleep, hours of it. And when we woke up that afternoon, stiff and sunburned and feeling like we'd been run over by a truck and somehow loving it, there was a strangeness on the base. You could feel it before you could see it. The instructors were different, sharper, cleaner. They'd shaved, pressed their uniforms. There was a tension in the air that had nothing to do with us. Something was coming. A car came through the gate around 1600. Not a Navy van. A real car, dark and official, with little flags on the front. And out of it stepped a man in dress uniform with so much fruit salad on his chest that even us exhausted recruits straightened up on instinct. The commander. Now I should explain. We didn't see brass at our level. Not real brass. The instructors ran our world. We never laid eyes on the men who ran theirs. So for a flag officer to roll onto the beach where the trainees were, that didn't happen. It just didn't. The word went down the line fast. Formation. Now. They got us out onto the grinder, what was left of us, lined up in our wrinkled fatigues. Barely able to stand at attention. And the instructors lined up too, Petrov, Ramos, all of them, and I'd never seen the instructors stand at attention for anybody. But they did. Ramrod straight, eyes forward, the whole cadre. The commander walked the line slow. He was older, gray at the temples, lined face, but he moved like a man who could still do everything he was about to ask any of us to do. He looked at each of us as he passed, said a word here and there. "Where you from, son? Proud of you." That kind of thing. We answered in croaks, our voices wrecked. And then he got to Wren. I want to tell this part exactly right, because it's the part that matters, and I've thought about it 10,000 times, and I want you to see it the way I saw it. He came down the line and he stopped in front of her, the same as he'd stopped in front of the rest of us. He started to say something. I think he started to say the same kind of thing he'd said to everybody, some word of encouragement. And then he saw her face. I watched it happen. I was 3 down the line, close enough. I watched the commander's eyes land on Ren's face, and I watched the words die in his throat. He went still. The way the safety chief had gone still in the boat. The way Petrov had gone still in the surf. But more than any of them, total, like a clock that stopped. For a second he didn't move at all. His eyes went down to her forearm, to the sleeve where the bird was covered now, but he knew. He knew what was under there. He'd known the moment he saw her face. And then this man, this commander, this man with 30 years and a chest full of ribbons, this man we'd been terrified of 2 minutes ago, his eyes filled up. I saw it. Right there on the grinder in the afternoon sun, the commander's eyes filled with tears. He didn't say a word. He took a step back, one step to give her room, and he came to attention. He, the senior man on that whole base, came to attention in front of a recruit in wrinkled fatigues, and he raised his hand and he saluted her. You have to understand what that means. Rank salutes rank, but it flows downhill in custom and up in respect, and a commander does not stop and render a slow, formal, deliberate salute to a trainee on the grinder. It's backwards. It breaks every rule of how the thing is supposed to work. And he did it anyway, and he held it. He held that salute like it was the only thing in the world, his hand trembling just slightly, his jaw tight, the tears just sitting there in his eyes refusing to fall. And Ren came to attention and returned it. And the two of them stood there saluting each other in dead silence, and the whole grinder, 50 recruits and the entire instructor cadre, we didn't make a sound. Nobody breathed. The only thing moving was the wind off the bay. I had no idea what I was looking at. I just knew it was the most important thing I'd ever seen, and that I was seeing something I had no right to see, and that I'd never forget it as long as I lived. The commander lowered his salute, and in the silence, quiet, just loud enough to carry down the line, he said, "It's an honor, Chief. We thought we lost you." That's all. He said it, and his voice cracked on the last word, and then he gathered himself and he turned, and he walked back down the line and got in his car and was gone. Didn't finish the inspection. Couldn't, I think. And we were left standing there with 1,000 questions, and a woman we suddenly understood we'd never understood at all. It came out slowly over the days after, pieces of it from the instructors who didn't have to keep the secret anymore. Pieces of it, eventually, from Ren herself, on the one night she ever talked about it, but I'll save that for last. Here's the shape of it. Ren had been one of them, years ago, before any of us. Not a SEAL in the technical sense, the door wasn't open to women than the way it was getting open now, but she'd come up through a different path, a quieter one, the kind of unit you don't read about, the kind that operates in the dark places of the world and doesn't get medals it can show anybody. She'd worked alongside men like Petrov and Ramos and that commander, back when he was a young officer. She'd been on teams with them. Bled with them. And on one of those operations, the details I never got and never asked for, something had gone wrong, bad wrong. The kind of wrong where people don't come home. And Ren had done something out there. Stayed behind the way I heard it. Held a position so the others could get out. Gone back into something nobody should have gone back into, to pull out men who'd have died otherwise. She'd been hit. The scars I'd seen, those were from that night. And in the chaos and the dark and the bad intelligence that followed, she'd been listed as lost, killed in action. They'd held a service for her. The commander, a younger man then, had stood at that service and saluted an empty box. But she wasn't dead. She'd been taken. And what happened to her in the time she was gone is something I will not put words to because it isn't mine to tell and because the parts I know are bad enough that they don't need an audience. She came back. Eventually, through means I never learned, she came back, broken in places, carrying things no person should carry. And the bird tattoo, that cheap little faded diving bird the boys had laughed at on the first day, she'd had that done long before in another country in another life. It was the symbol her old team used, the thing they put on themselves so that if the worst happened, if they ended up somewhere with no name and no dog tags, somebody might know who they'd been. The numbers under it weren't a date. They were the others, the ones who didn't come back from that night. She wore them on her arm so she'd never set them down. That's what those boys had laughed at. That's what Boone had said a fifth grader could have drawn. A memorial. A grave she carried with her everywhere on her own skin, for men who died so she could live, and then died believing she died too. I think about that and my face still goes hot, after all these years. So then why was she there? Back at Bud S., putting herself through the worst thing in the military, when she'd already done all of it and more, when she had nothing left to prove to anybody on God's earth. The instructors knew, of course. That's why they handled her the way they did, careful, respectful, hiding it. They'd been ordered to treat her like any other trainee, to let her earn the thing clean, the way she'd insisted. But they couldn't fully hide what they felt. You can't look at someone you buried and grieved and then watch them crawl through the surf and not have it show on your face. She was there because the door had finally opened. Officially. For real this time. Women could earn the trident now, walk the path all the way through, no asterisks, no quiet side units that didn't count. And Wren, who'd done everything those men had done and been written off, erased, mourned, and forgotten by the official record, Wren wanted it on paper. Wanted to walk through the front door this time. Wanted to finish in the light the thing she'd spent her whole life doing in the dark. She wasn't proving anything to us. She wasn't proving anything to the brass. I think she was proving something to the names on her arm. I think she was finishing it for them. That's what the commander knew when he saluted her. That's why he couldn't speak. He wasn't just saluting a recruit. He was saluting a ghost who'd come back. He was finishing the salute he'd given an empty box all those years ago, and this time there was somebody standing inside it. We thought we lost you. Yeah, so did everybody. So did she. Maybe the night she talked was the night before graduation. By then there were 31 of us left out of the 200 and something who'd lined up on that grinder the first morning. 31 out of all that cockiness and ink and noise. The bell had taken the rest, and we'd stopped being a class of strangers a long time before. You can't carry a boat over a man's skull for months and stay strangers. You become something else. Brothers, people say, and it's a worn-out word, but I don't have a better one. Wren was one of us by then. Fully. Whatever distance had been between her and the rest had closed somewhere out in the surf, one night at a time. The guys who'd laughed at her tattoo would have walked into fire for her, and they knew it, and they were quiet about it the way men get quiet about the things that matter most. The last night, a few of us snuck down to the beach. Against the rules, technically, but they ease up at the very end, and the instructors looked the other way. We had a little fire going in the sand, low, and we passed around something we weren't supposed to have, and we just sat there in the dark, looking at the water that had nearly killed every one of us more than once. Wren came down and sat with us. That alone was something. She mostly kept to herself even at the end. For a long time nobody said anything. The fire popped, the waves came in. And then Boone, big, dumb, good-hearted Boone, who'd started all of it that first day with his mouth, Boone said it. What we'd all been wanting to ask and none of us had the nerve to. "The bird," he said, quiet, looking at the fire, not at her. "Will you tell us what it means? You don't have to, but I said something that first day. I'm the one who said it about a fifth grader drawing it." He swallowed. "I'd give about anything to take that back." Wren was quiet a long time, long enough that I thought she wouldn't answer. The fire crackled. Somebody shifted in the sand. Then she rolled up her sleeve. She held her arm out toward the firelight so we could all see it. The little diving bird. The row of numbers underneath. Up close in the orange light, you could see how old it was, how the lines had blurred and gone soft and blue-gray the way old ink does. It had been on her skin a very long time. "It's not numbers," she said. "Everybody thinks it's a date. It's not." She touched the row beneath the bird, one mark at a time, slow, like she was counting beads. "It's them. Each one's a man, people I served with a long time ago, in a place I can't tell you about, doing things I can't tell you about." She paused. 11 of them. We were 13. The bird's our mark. We all had it. So that wherever we ended up, whatever happened, somebody'd know we belonged to each other. The fire popped. Nobody moved. One night it went bad, she said. About as bad as it gets, and 11 of them didn't come home. She was looking at the water now, not at us. Her voice didn't shake. It was worse than shaking. It was flat and steady and very far away. 2 of us did. I'm one of the 2. The other one, he's gone now 2 years back. Cancer, so. She let out a breath. It's just me. I'm the only one still walking around with the bird on my arm. The only one left to remember the rest of them. She rolled her sleeve back down. So when you laughed at it, she said, and she looked right at Boone, but there was no anger in it, none at all. You were laughing at the only headstone 11 good men ever got. There's no graves for them anywhere with names on. No flags. No folded triangles handed to anybody. There's just this. She tapped her arm. And me. As long as I'm alive and I keep showing up, they're not all the way gone. Somebody still carries them. Boone's face, I'll never forget Boone's face in that firelight. He looked like a kid. He looked like he might come apart. I'm sorry, he said. God, I'm so sorry. I know you are, Wren said. It's all right, you didn't know, none of you knew. A small, tired ghost of a smile. That was sort of the point. Somebody asked her gently why she'd come back. Why do all this? Why crawl through the worst the Navy's got when she'd already done all of it and worse in the dark, with no credit for any of it? She thought about that one a while too. Because they wrote me off, she said finally. Twice, really. Once when they listed me killed. And once for a long time just by being women the door was shut. The kind of work I did, you did it in the shadows and then it disappeared and there's no record you ever did anything at all. I spent half my life being told that what I did didn't count, officially, on paper. She picked up a handful of sand, let it run out through her fingers. And now the door's open, for real this time. So I wanted to walk through the front of it in the daylight, where everybody can see, not for me. She shook her head. I'm too old for it to matter much for me. I wanted it on the record for the 11. I wanted there to be one place, one piece of paper where it says somebody who carried their mark walked all the way through and finished. So it counts. So they count. She stood up then, brushed the sand off. Get some sleep, she told us. Big day tomorrow. And she walked back up the beach into the dark, the way she always did, and we sat there around the fire and none of us said anything for a long, long time. We graduated the next morning. It's a simple ceremony, really. They don't make a Hollywood thing of it. You stand in formation, clean and pressed, and they pin the trident on you, the Budweiser guys call it, this gold eagle clutching a trident and a pistol and an anchor, and that's it. You're one of them. The thing you bled for, it's just suddenly there on your chest, and it weighs nothing and it weighs everything. The commander came back for it. I figured he might. He worked down the line, pinning each of us, shaking each hand. And when he got to Wren, the whole base went quiet again, the way it had on the grinder. Everybody remembering the salute. Everybody waiting. He pinned the trident on her. And then he didn't let go of her hand right away. He held it, both of his hands around hers, and he leaned in and said something to her too low for the rest of us to hear. Whatever it was, she nodded. And there were tears on his face again, this old warrior, not bothering to hide them this time. Then he stepped back, and he saluted her again, slow, deliberate, and this time the whole cadre saluted with him, Petrov, Ramos, every instructor on that base, all of them at once holding it. And then, I don't even remember deciding to do it, the rest of us saluted too. All 31 of us, brand new and trembling, saluting the woman we'd laughed at on the first day. The whole formation, every man holding a salute for one person, in total silence, with the bay glittering behind her, and that little faded bird hidden under a crisp pressed sleeve. She returned it, one hand to her brow, eyes forward, jaw set, and just for a second, just one, her eyes closed, that same breath, that thing she did. And I knew, this time I knew she was telling the 11, we made it, all the way through. In the daylight, it counts now, you count. Then it was over, and there was cheering, and hats in the air, and families running onto the field, and the whole thing dissolved into ordinary joy the way these things do. I served a long time after that. Did things I'm proud of and a few I'm not. Lost friends. The way you do. I'm an old man now, older than Ren was that summer, and most of those 31 are scattered across the world or under it. I lost track of Ren mostly. We weren't the kind of friends who write letters, but I heard things over the years, that she served a few more years and then went quiet the way people like her do. I heard she taught for a while, not tactics, something softer, working with men coming back broken from the same kind of dark she'd been in, helping them carry it. That sounded right to me. That sounded exactly like her. And I heard, this is the last thing I heard, and I don't know if it's true, but I choose to believe it is, I heard that near the end, when she knew it was coming, she had the tattoo touched up. The whole thing redone, fresh and dark and clear, the bird and all 11 of them, so that when she went she'd take them with her looking sharp. Not faded, not blurred, carried all the way to the end, proud and plain, by the last one left who remembered. I think about that little bird more than I think about almost anything from those days. We looked at it the first morning and we saw something cheap, something to laugh at, a thing a fifth grader could have drawn, and the whole time it was the truest, heaviest, bravest thing on that entire base. A graveyard the size of a forearm, walked through hell and back twice, carried in silence by a woman who never once asked anybody to understand it. That's the thing I've learned, if I've learned anything. You never know what people are carrying. The quietest one in the room, the one you've already written off, the one with the cheap little mark you think you understand at a glance, that's the one. That's so often the one. So I don't laugh anymore. At anybody, at anything I don't understand yet. Because somewhere out there, there's always somebody standing dead still in the second row, saying nothing, asking for nothing, with 11 good men tucked up their sleeve. And the least you can do, the very least, is salute.